Herman. I'm the Superintendent of Education at the Byron Forest Preserve.
And I'm Susan Kleiman, and I do education at the Forest Preserves.
Yeah, and we're here at the top of Bald Hill at Bald Hill Prairie Preserve, which is a wonderful oak savanna here. It's one of our newest preserves. It's about 380 acres. Actually, it has a Mount Morris address. It's on North Silver Creek Road, and it's just a beautiful site that has a variety of habitats, and we'll be showing you all the different ones today of the different things that are here. It's very unique. Well, we're here looking over at the entrance to Bald Hill, looking down to the big tree. Anybody that's been here, this opened in 2017. It's changed dramatically since then. Our restoration department has been really busy restoring and getting rid of a lot of the invasive trees and shrubs, honeysuckles and some of the shade-loving trees. We looked at a 1939 aerial survey map, and we're taking it back to look the same vegetation as we had from this aerial survey. So we've taken out these draws, which had been eroded by cattle, and filled in with all sorts of nasty thorn bushes and honeysuckles and such. So we've eliminated, I'd say, hundreds of different types of trees and bushes. So as we go down, we've really opened it up. We've left some cottonwoods and a few trees here and there, but we've taken it back, leaving the oak savannas and the contours of the prairie the way it should have looked. And that's what we've started doing, and you'll notice the difference as we walk throughout the day here.
We're talking about wildflowers, but we happen to be near three flowers that aren't exactly native. So the biggest one is a tree, black locust. It's a tree, but it's a legume, it's a bean. Beautiful flowers. These trees are from the East Coast in the Appalachians. They're not from Illinois. I was just reading a book, and I finished it last night, a slim little book called A Missionary Tour, 1840. A missionary from New York State came out to the newly settled Midwestern prairies. He called it the West because that felt we didn't have all the way to the coast yet. And he talked about the farms on either side of the lane. They planted black locust on purpose because it's very rot-resistant wood, made great fence posts and other structural things, like if you're building a cabin. So it doesn't rot in the ground forever. It's really good stuff. And then the other plants we have over here, this is Asian bush honeysuckle. Some people call it wild jasmine. Beautiful flowers. Sometimes they smell nice. Sometimes they're a deeper pink. It's opposite. All the branching are opposite. But again, this is from Asia, and this has overtaken the understory in all of the woodlands in Illinois, and people think this is what it's supposed to look like. This is not Illinois. This is an Asian bush. So we try to kill those and get rid of those. Oh, and then there's another weed, also Asian, right here that's starting to bloom. This one you don't want to touch. This is wild parsnip, and it's the worst in its family, for the juices from that interact with the sunlight and will give you a sunburn and sometimes blisters, phytophotodermatitis. So don't touch any kind of parsley type plant, but this one especially is bad at it. I can see a spittlebug here. There's a little tiny, the young bug lives in this spit house until it matures and grows wings and flies away. All right, we have two kinds of hickories in this fence row. This one is unusual. You can see the delicate little catkins, the male pollen parts hanging down, and real small leaves, groups of 7. This is Caria cordiformis, or bitternut hickory. And to the right of it, the larger leaves, is our shagbark hickory. And below here in the understory is a native. This is Black Haw viburnum. And just like the honeysuckle that's not native to its left, these are also opposite. And this one has green fruits. They're going to turn dark blue-black later. So it's already flowered. It's an early flowering shrub, native. This is really nice to see because you don't get this very often. It's called Black Haw viburnum.
We're at the big tree. This is the biggest tree in the state of Illinois of any species. This is one of the things we uncovered when we first found this. This was full of honeysuckle and all sorts of invasive trees and brush, and it was so dense you couldn't see the silhouette of the trees. But then in February, when all the leaves finally fell off the honeysuckle, we were able to see how big it really was. And we went in and measured it. It's 28.5 feet around. That's over 9 feet in diameter. And we used a drone to measure the top. It was 122 feet tall. It might be a little taller now after a couple years. But this is the biggest tree of any species. It dethroned a big cottonwood down in southern Illinois at the Cache River. And so these trees come in male and female. This one is a male, it only produces pollen, and then the female is over there. She's the one that makes the cotton seeds, the wispy things that look like cotton where the seeds float away. So these trees generally grow along ponds and streams and really like wet. They're like willows. They like to have really wet areas. And there's no stream here, but there is drainage from all these gravel hillsides, these piles of gravel that were left over by glacier activity. So every time it rains or snows, the melt comes all the way down here, goes down this ditch, and the tree just slurps it up. And so that's probably after prairie fires were being subdued back in the probably 1830s, 1840s. These trees probably wouldn't be able to grow if there's prairie fires coming through. They don't like being burnt. But once the prairie fires were subdued, probably the wind blew in some seeds from someplace else. It landed along this wet area, and they finally took root and were able to get a foothold. Branch that's broken off of the female tree here, the cottonwood, and you can see, number one, cottonwood gets its name. It's Populus deltoides, so you have a delta or triangle shaped leaf, and then you got the female. This is the seeds being formed. They would break open, and you'd have a cotton seed. A wispy cotton would take the tiny seeds, and they'd float away, sort of like dandelions or milkweeds. But this is what the seeds look like right now with the female tree. Kind of cool.
So we're trying to find the bobolinks that live here. They're unusual for a bird in this area because they're dark underneath. Most birds are darker on the back and lighter on the front. These are completely black in the front. And on the back of the male's head, there's this slightly yellow, buttery pompadour, and then 2 white wing patches on his back. And when he sings, either perched or flying, it sounds like R2-D2, we think, or bobolink, bobolink, bobolink. So maybe you can listen for that someday. The females are much more cryptic. They're sort of tannish, yellowish, brownish, very hard to see. But they're a grassland bird, just like the dickcissel we saw.
If those of you that have been here before, that knob is something new. The knob has always been there, but it was covered in forest over there, and we removed the invasive species. Actually, had been a rocky hilltop, and the farmer had been using it as a manure dump. They would dump, and then all this around here has been cattle and horse pasture. From what we can tell, ever since it was settled in the 1830s, this has been nothing but pasture. And over the years, they improved the pasture by putting in cool season grasses so the cattle have something to eat year round, and they overseeded it, and they probably did all sorts of other things to it. So what we have now is mostly European grasses growing, but we're slowly getting rid of the invasive trees and getting back to natural contours. Bluebird nesting boxes for eastern bluebirds. We put this up this spring. It's already had one nest with 5 babies that fledged and have already left, and I cleaned out the nest. And if you want to come up and look, we can actually, there's another nest in here already, and it's already got eggs in it. Here at the top of Bald Hill, you can see we have beautiful vistas. You can see on that side, you can see Mount Morris. Over there, you can see Leaf River. It's one of the second highest point in Ogle County, which is kind of cool. It's about 4 miles from the Rock River, but we actually believe that there are Native American mounds here because of the great views. So this area has been used for years and years for a variety of different things, but the settlers mostly used this for pasture for their horses and for their cattle, almost from the beginning, because the land was steep and rocky and it was untillable. So it has been used for pasture, and therefore a lot of it has been saved. These great oak savannas and other areas are slowly being restored to the way they would have looked when the settlers arrived here in the 1830s.
Right. This is a native plant called clustered black snakeroot. Senicula is the genus. And that's its flower, a green thing. You can see the little anthers in there. Very common, and the seeds will stick to you later. Called hound's tongue. It's not native, it's a European plant, but it's fine. It just doesn't get very numerous or weedy, and it's very interesting. It's stinky. I'll show you how big it is by putting my hand there. But if you smell it, it does smell quite gross, like a dog. We have columbine, the only one we have in the east. And it's fading a little bit now. It was a brighter red, and it's just starting to fade. In Colorado, they have a big one that's blue. This is a native woodland grass called woodland brome, Festuca obtusa. And it's real delicate, real pretty, real tiny seeds. And it's turning a lovely color right now, which is interesting. And not very smooth, just sort of your normal grass leaf. Our fading prairie trillium, Trillium recurvatum, I think is what it's called. It has a speckly leaf and these closed up sort of flowers, always in threes, 3 evenly spaced leaves, 3 evenly spaced bracts and petals. And then over here, what's fun is we have a baby oak. And I think it might be a bur oak. It looks a little young, it's hard to say. I don't see any hair, well, maybe there is a hair, so maybe it's some other kind of oak, but it's hard to get baby oaks. They need sunlight, and we've opened up this savanna to get the sunlight in, so hopefully it'll grow. We also have May-apples here. Here's a young one. If you get 2, you can get the fruits. And a shooting star, still blooming a little. And you see the leaves way down the bottom. Shooting star is basil rosettes. And they like savannas too. They like prairies or savannas, but not too shady.
Down Bald Hill now, and we're actually transitioning into a young hickory forest. These are shagbark hickories, and like Greg always says, these shagbarks get real shaggy after they get about, they're like teenage boys. They get shaggy after about 15 years and their bark starts to look like that. But that's what Greg Keelback always says, and I don't take the credit for that line. But anyway, so we have left all these. So this is going to be hardly any oaks, but mostly all young hickory trees growing through here. As you go down, you can see all the way down, and it's just going to be a much shadier canopy, and it's no longer a savanna.
We found a native prairie rose. All the native prairie roses and other native roses have this stipule. I'm going to take a leaf off so you can see it. They have a spear-shaped thing called a stipule at the base of each leaf that looks like a spear on each side. And the non-native multiflora rose has a fringe stipule. I just don't know if this is Rosa Carolina, Rosa arkansana, or Rosa blanda. It's one of those. It's a little tall for Rosa Carolina, but it is in some grass, so it may be stretching.
We're now coming down from Bald Hill. We're looking northeast across where way down there is the big tree down at the end there. And in front of us here, if you see those colored flags, that is a remnant prairie, which means it's been here for thousands of years and it wasn't destroyed by cattle grazing or overseeding. And there's some rare plants down there that helped us when we decided to purchase this land. There's some rare endangered species that we were found there and some other sites here. So we've been down there monitoring them to make sure that they're still there and staying safe. But just a wonderful view, and you got the sunset over here to the west, and it's just a beautiful night here on the downside of Bald Hill at the Bald Hill Prairie.